Hi, this is Ashishar Bidekar and welcome to my podcast, The ARB Show. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Abhinav. He is the co-founder and CEO of Orangewood Labs, a robotics company. Orangewood builds AI-powered robotic arms that are simple to operate. They make collaborative robots safe, affordable, and capable of coping with modern-day manufacturing challenges. Abhinav's vision is to build the Industrial Revolution 4.0 with their cobots or collaborative robots. His aim is to democratize robotics, strengthen the hands of every maker, turbocharging productivity at factory floors around the world, and essentially set humans free from manual tasks which are monotonous, repetitive, or hazardous. Over to you, Abhinav. Do share your life journey and your vision for Orangewood Labs. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ashish, for inviting me on the show. And I'm happy to tell my story and, how we came up to starting Orangewood. So Orangewood basically started as a company where we were building furniture using robots. And it was, so this is like I've started companies before, and this is something which we were trying to take a shot at the time, the co-working market, and wanted to build something which, where people can basically, the co-working industry, which was growing at the time, this is like 2017, 2018, when they were growing very fast. We wanted to supply them furniture, customized furniture, which can be built quickly. And before this, I had another company. I was trying to build a truck for rural areas. So, learned a lot of things from that. And then, you're trying to use our learnings into the new company. One of the interesting things happened during that time. So we basically built a CNC machine in my parents' basement, started using it to create furniture pieces and then supplying to some of these co-working spaces. And that was the time when we got into Y Combinator. And this is late 2017. We were in the winter of 18 batch. So we were at Y Combinator from January to March of 2018. And over there, we were asked, what is the biggest thing you can build with this piece of technology which you have created? And before that, we were not really thinking that big. But then when you were surrounded by very, very ambitious people, you would start thinking, it's almost the same amount of effort to make something large and, if you're even trying to do something small. So why not build something big? And we thought about scaling this. So that basically meant, we have to scale factory operations. And what we realized during this journey was the fact that if you, it becomes easier to cut pieces of wood quickly, in a very, very precise way using automation. But it was always 100% of the time, it was always finished manually. Basically it means painting, sanding, and, creating that fine finish of any furniture piece, which we use in our homes and are in offices. It had to be, finished by humans. And it kind of became like a bottleneck, especially painting. Painting became such a bottleneck for us that we could not, could not find people. Then if people would come and work for us, they would not stick for long. They'll start doing other things. And then we started digging deeper, what is happening? What we understood was nobody wanted to do paint jobs anymore. It was very hard for people to be inhaling fumes the whole day, doing furniture painting. And out of that frustration, we ended up building a simple robot which was made out of plywood. It was just for $700. It could paint surfaces, paint like flat surfaces. It wouldn't do like edges and anything intricate, but it could paint flat surfaces. And so that gave us some encouragement. We thought, yeah, why not we buy like a proper robot, put them together on a assembly line, and then that would help us produce faster. It will solve all our problems. And so when we inquired about the robotic arm which we needed, that was for $35,000. Yeah. I mean, something which we made for $700, like something similar which we made for $700, the market equivalent, which has like some more features, but doing the exact same job, would cost so much more. So it was very, very clear that there's something missing. And, I want to like now talk about like what I did in my previous, you could say, in my professional career, which kind of led me to doing this journey. So I'm a mechanical engineer by education, and I was really I was in love with cars. All my life, that's what I thought I would do when I'll grow up. And I got a chance to do that during my final year of my college. And there was this competition called Baha SAE, where college students basically come together and they build a car for an endurance race. It happens every year in Indore now. And when I was graduating, it was the first time it happened in India. So I got the opportunity to start building, start understanding how it gets built. And then post that, I was working for one, a government company. It's called ICAT. And then after that, there was this company called Sona Koyo Steering Systems Limited. And that's where I was working. And over there, my work was essentially, it was very much R&D. But, my projects were basically to figure out how do I reduce the cost of this Toyota Rivet from 28 rupees to 7 rupees. And so that kind of led me into, this whole path where I would look at an object and then figure out, how much it would have been, how it would have been mined, to how it would have been processed, to how it's being recycled, the whole cycle. Now they call it the first principle thinking. I did not know at the time. But it basically led me, questioning everything, how much retailer would be making, how much the manufacturer would be making, what is the distribution cost, all of those aspects. And then if you keep applying these principles to your normal life, you will find a lot of, how things get built. You get a lot of clarity, and you could see a lot of business opportunity from there. And so post that, I remember back in 2008, I was kind of laid off, because I also volunteered because I was getting bored. So there was an option that, I may not leave, but I really wanted to go ahead and start a company. And one of the ideas I was working at the time, I was, I think, 22 years old. I was working on this idea that, so in rural areas, there are vehicles. There's something called a jugaad. It has a pumps engine. If you've ever gone towards I think 10 years back, or even nowadays, you see it sometimes, there's a pump engine, and they have basically made a Jeep kind of a structure from different parts. So I saw that, and I was really interested in understanding more, and figuring out can there be a market for a more legalized jugaad? And during one of my travels to villages, I found out that yes, there are these people who buy these vehicles, they don't have property rights. And because of not having property rights, they cannot get loans on them. And police can basically confiscate it anytime. So it's a very difficult situation these people have to face who are driving these vehicles. But they are doing a very big service to the society by providing transportation where nobody else does. And so I was it became very clear that, okay, I've built a car in my college, with the skills which was very low compared to, any other automobile company. But it was still better than what those artisans were building.
Got it.
So why can't I use my skills?
Right. So essentially all this experience helped you to kind of figure out that if you have built a robotic arm at 700, and if the nearest alternative is for $35,000, there's something you can really do in terms of democratization. And just like in the rural areas, people who could not afford a quality transportation, you kind of connected the dots and created this amazing stuff with Orangewoods. Excellent. So as I said, in this show, I request the guests to talk about top 5 tips or trends in that specific domain of their expertise. And given your rich experience and great traction, what you have got in Orangewood, it would be great if you could talk about the top 5 trends in industrial robotics. That would be really helpful to for the audience. So over to you, Abhinav. In your view, what's the first big trend which you see in the industrial robotics space?
So the fact that everyone else is trying to democratize the robot, like it's not just us. We think that we are a little bit ahead than everyone, but companies are trying to do that. And one of the trends which we are seeing, at least in the academia at this point of time, is using large language models to program robots. This is something which we pioneered. We were probably the first one to come up with RoboGPT, which is like our program, which uses large language models to program robots. I think that has a lot of potential to democratize robots. Getting it to the point where, let's say, our aim is to get it to a point where your halwai should be able to use it. Your local chaiwala should be able to use a robotic arm to make chai while he can talk to the customers.
Right. And just for the context of the international audience, halwai is a traditional Indian sweet maker, and chaiwala is essentially a roadside tea vendor. Sorry, just had to give that context. Over to you again, Abhinav.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where, or you could say your baker or barista or your bartender should be using a robot. Excellent. And I think we are at a point in time of our society where it's no longer the human labor is no longer scalable to a point where which can take care of our needs as a human civilization, our needs and desires. I think we desire a lot more, and then there are not enough human workers who would either willing to do these kind of jobs or qualified to do these jobs. So this is like a trend in a lot of developed nations and even in developing nations. So for example, Japan or US, these are two countries where you could see some of these problems. It's very hard to find people who can be machinists or be baristas. A lot of these jobs are not being filled because the younger generation no longer is willing to do things which do not create any creative value for them. Yeah.
Got it. So far, just to recap, first big trend which you think is the democratization of robotics, and the second trend which you see is many of the jobs which till now were seen as great jobs are slowly finding a hard time getting people to fill those positions, and probably that's the kind of opportunity or entry for robotics. So that's a nice summary. What would be the third kind of trend in your view?
I also feel a lot of jobs which were extremely dangerous, things like oil rig workers, things which oil rig workers are able to do, where people have to be sent to remote areas for maybe just checking one sensor. A lot of these things will get automated either through industrial IoT or through robots, while robots or some kind of drone goes and checks, or some kind of robot dog basically goes and checks that place. So we are seeing some of these trends. The fourth would be about teleoperation, right? you don't need to go there yourself, but the robot can basically, being teleoperated by the human, can go and do the job you want it to do.
Got it. So this is interesting. So for your third point, can we say that it's like saying that do more by really valuing human life in a way?
Absolutely.
Because what you said, it's really important that many of the jobs are extremely hazardous, and they're still done because it's a high requirement, and still people put their lives at stake and get it done. But it would be really useful and helpful as a society at large if we get robots to go to do those hazardous jobs, and and it's kind of much more safer that you don't have put humans' lives at stake, and then they can do something else. That's relevant. And also this whole thing of using communication protocols, or you don't have to be there, is interesting, and you will see it in a very limited way, at least for many of the space missions, right? For example, you've got the Martian rover getting remotely controlled from Earth, and it's able to do many of the initial stuff. But put that same concept in hazardous locations, and then it really opens up great opportunities. That's excellent. What would be your final trend in your view?
I think the final trend would be that hardware is coming back in a very big way. So it's not just like, so there are certain industries which are automated, right? Like the service industry, and especially if you look at what generative AI has done, that it's the impact of generative AI on a lot of service industries is imminent, and it's going to happen. So you will see commoditization of a lot of companies which are in this space. But the next frontier for rest of the engineers or whoever are thinking of making their careers in the next 5 years, I think hardware is the way. There are a lot of devices which will still have to be built for, again, to maintain our current level of consumption as like the human species. So what we believe is that allied hardware, things like system integration, these are some of the trends you will see, gaining like a lot of traction. Yeah.
And as they say, hardware is not easy, right? It would require a lot of hard work as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We were not built for this thing. Like, we don't have the right ecosystems apart from, let's say, few geographies in the world.
Right.
And you will see like such a trend, like especially with changing geopolitics, keeping all our supply chains dependent on like few places in the world. It's no longer feasible. True. I think pandemic also showed us that. So that's True. Why like it's the time when every other geography has to kind of start building hardware and focus on hardware. Yeah.
Right. Now let's come to a very interesting news which came just a few days back, which is the Tesla Optima, I think, humanoid robot, and it brought some very interesting observations in many people, and this is being a topic of discussion for quite some time. That should robots be humanoid, or they are better off if they are seen as inanimate, machines. What's your view on that? And also the fact that you're building robotic arms rather than a complete robot, does that increase the chances and increase the adoption rates for your technology, because it's no longer seen as a threat to humans but more as a assistant or as a tool rather than some artificial entity replacing humans? What are your views?
Well, I think people will be like, people who want to get threatened, they will still get threatened. So it's not, we've seen like these trends, from Luddites, the whole movement, I think in the 19th century or before that in France, to people who have opposed every new movement, like, having computers in offices. You've seen those trends happening again and again. And then it's always the idea of productivity has pushed human race forward. So for us, I mean, I don't feel this is what's going to happen. I think we'll probably welcome this trend with more positivity maybe this time. Yes, I mean, we definitely see some threats to some threats to the current system. But what we have seen, like in industrial automation, is the fact that if you like until and unless you are uh, making the whole place automated, you actually end up hiring more humans because you have like a lot of efficiency in one part of the, let's say, manufacturing line, but then what you're doing is you're just pushing the bottleneck to another point where you need to hire more humans to keep up with the robots. And we have, like, with our installations, we have also seen that.
That's right. In fact, it reminds me of a very interesting article which I read some time back. It talks of how when the elevators or lifts, before they became automatic, all of them used to have a liftman. And when you started to have automated lifts, again the same kind of concerns were quite prevalent at that point of time. That is it safe? What about the job loss, etc., etc. I mean, now it might feel humorous, but that was a reality at some point of time. Also, I think like all human endeavors, there is no limit, right? Because if you just go back in history, maybe 200 years ago, and try to think from at that point of time, if someone would have said that, hey, you know what, you can go to the moon, and this is what you can accomplish. You can have heavier than air flight, and you can go twice the speed of sound, etc. People would have thought of many of these as really wild dreams. But again, when you look at science fiction, right, many of the things which, for example, Star Trek, in the mid 50s or so, many of those inventions which were science fiction at that time are reality now, right? For example, think about the cellular phone, think about many of the health scanners, etc. There's no limit to what human imagination can happen. And I think what you mentioned is a very valid point, that there is always a self-correcting mechanism in place in society at large, right? Because you really can't have, because the more you try to suppress innovation by creating more areas or more regulations, it really will not really help, right? Let it be free, let things come out. But more on the humorous side, just like there's a famous Dilbar cartoon which said that, I wonder what people used to do to act busy before computers were invented. So similarly, there would always be some flip side. Another point which I just wanted to check with you is there's a lot of emphasis when you talk of AI, when you talk of LLMs, etc., on ethics, on guardrails, right? And when you talk of robotics, it's quite relevant to bring in the famous Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. So, any thoughts on that as to what kind of guardrails should be there as an industry in the robotics space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have seen, I think, few times in our lives, we have seen, like, okay, this can be dangerous because we deal with that kind of hardware, and obviously just giving it control, giving a large language model control of the whole robot, that can be dangerous. Not just in like in a way which can harm, let's say, a human life, but it can harm itself, right? It can cause damage to property. So we are putting like certain guardrails. We are creating our own own mechanisms to within our use cases, within our focus areas. We are creating those guardrails, and it can the best part is what we have seen is that if you actually do not want the robots to be like the smartest versions of themselves, right? You don't want that superhuman intelligence, at least at this point of time. Just with like a little bit of intelligence, what we call as the insect brain, it can actually solve a lot of societal problems. So that just that part you could like solve so many things, and then you can obviously create AGI. What we also believe is that you cannot get to AGI in the token space. It needs to be some kind of real world experience, and which is the robots can right now do. It can learn through like doing things. That's how humans have learned things. So, like we believe like there would be like a new path to this, and it will have like its own learning. I'm not saying that we will not have any kind of accidents or anything else. There won't be any dangerous situations, but yeah, every innovation also has that, right? So yeah, we have to deal with it in a more responsible way. Yeah.
Excellent. So from an Orangewood perspective, what are the kind of geographies where your products are getting implemented, and what kind of verticals success stories you can share? And in specific, if there's any aha moment which you really kind of stays with you, wherein you said, wow, I really didn't know, our robots could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of them. So we are currently focused on India and US. These are the two markets which we are present in. And the reason for that is like we really know these markets very well. Plus, like these two markets also give us a lot of perspective on what the world is going to look like, because these are two extremes. You do have like you're in one country where you have a very large population who supposedly should be filling up those jobs, but that's not true. It actually makes a lot of sense to have automation even in India, even though there's this, like, your logical thinking will say, hey, I can like train maybe 20 million kids to become welders, but none of those 20 million kids want to be welders. They want to be doing something else. So what do you do with that? And then on the other hand, you have US, where no kid wants to go and learn welding. It's very much the same. They want to do other things. So what we are seeing is like these kind of trends are happening all over the world. If you talk to a small business in let's say Sacramento, if you talk to them, like within 15 minutes, they would like, because their next generation does not want to like join their parents, paint shop or metalworking shop. They want to sell you that business. And very similarly, I've had similar conversations in Greater Noida. It's just the economics is a little bit different. With Indian customers, like they would want to use the automation, but it's very hard to like, make them pay for it, versus in the US, it happens very quickly. People are paying upfront. These people in the US are actually more desperate because they have seen this trend happening for much longer time, where they could not find people to fill up their positions. So these are like our observations. And aha moments have been like so many of them. So because in a lot of factories, our robotic arms are the most sophisticated, the most sophisticated piece of machinery which people have used. And one of our installations, they had like this habit of like turning off all the lights. Like they'll switch off like the electricity to the whole factory floor as a matter of habit, and then our robots had to be recalibrated every day. So we had to like put up a stop sign, tell them not to do that. That was very, very interesting. And the first thing they'll say is, hey, the robot is not working. And we would just like raise all alarms all over the place that, yeah, this cannot be happening, and then we get to know when we check the logs remotely, this says, oh, there was a power cut. So, and then you actually get to know, no, this was like manually done by someone because they were just turning off the lights. So yeah, this was like a very, it's like more of an Indian habit, right? Like we are used to like turning off lights because we want to save electricity. So yeah, that was a very, very, very interesting moment. Apart from that, yeah, the way people interact with it, most workers are actually more excited. There's like, hands down, we've been surprised so many times I've had people who do powder coating, workers who are doing powder coating. They've come up to us asking us, "Hey, can you teach us the robot?" Because that means that I don't actually have to do it myself. I can actually supervise the robot, or maybe supervise multiple robots while they
Got
do
it.
the job.
Got it.
Yeah,
Excellent. So essentially, it is not man versus robots, but man plus robots to do more for mans. Excellent.
absolutely,
Great, great.
absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks, Abhinav. This really great gives a great perspective. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. Do subscribe, share, and like this podcast available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and many more podcast channels. Bye for now. Talk to you soon.